Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Tom Sizemore? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of Tom Sizemore, including his career and his legal problems, then move to my analysis. Thomas Edward Sizemore Jr. was born in Detroit, Michigan on November 29, 1961. He went by the name Tom. His father was a philosophy professor who later became a lawyer. His mother worked for the government of the city of Detroit. Tom's parents would later divorce and marry other people. Tom implied his upbringing was both good and bad. There were moments where he felt like he had a normal and fulfilling childhood, and moments filled with a lot of stress. When Tom was 14 years old, he was inspired by the 1976 movie Taxi Driver, which starred Robert De Niro. Right after that, he knew that he wanted to be an actor, but he didn't tell anybody in his community, as that would not have been well received. Someone in that area would have had their desire to be an actor looked at as highly unrealistic. He said it would be like telling someone that he wanted to go to the moon on the next flight. Tom was impulsive and sensation-seeking. He started using substances at the age of 15. His drug use would plague him for his entire life. In 1983, Tom earned a bachelor's degree after studying theater in college. In 1986, he earned a master's degree from Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Tom moved to New York City in July of that year and launched his acting career. As he auditioned and found a few small roles, he made a living by loading trucks and working at nightclubs. Later, he worked as a waiter for a catering company, a bouncer, and was a telemarketer. Tom's first significant role was in the 1989 movie Born on the 4th of July. Tom then moved to Los Angeles and landed roles in many movies, just to name a few. The 1989 movie Lock Up, starring Sylvester Stallone. Tom had an uncredited role in Point Break in 1991. This movie starred Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves. He was in the 1992 movie Passenger 57, starring Wesley Snipes. In 1994, Tom was in both Natural Born Killers with Woody Harrelson and the Western Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner. In 1995, Tom was in the successful crime drama Heat, along with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. His first major leading role would come along in 1997 with the horror movie The Relic. In 1998, Tom had a supporting role in the epic war movie Saving Private Ryan. He played a sergeant attached to a squad trying to rescue a private in the time following the Allied invasion of northern France during World War II. This was a very successful movie and helped Tom's career significantly. Tom continued to have success after this, for a few years anyway. In 2001, he was in two more war movies, Pearl Harbor and Black Hawk Down. In 2002, Tom was on the CBS television series Robbery Homicide Division. It was canceled in the middle of the first and only season. He continued to act in several movies, but he never really had another major hit. Many of the movies could be described as low budget, direct-to-video, independently produced, and terribly written. Or put another way, Tom was drastically increasing his chances of encountering Steven Seagal. Tom continued to appear in several low-quality, unpopular, and lesser-known TV shows as well, although toward the end of his career, he did have a bit of a comeback with two television series, Shooter and Twin Peaks. During his career, Tom Sizemore accumulated over 260 acting credits across all his different projects. In 2013, he wrote a book about his life, which offered a curious perspective on his accomplishments and struggles, perhaps a bit distorted, but it was compelling nonetheless, especially for movie fans. Tom Sizemore's career could have been a lot better, but it was negatively affected by his criminal activity. For example, he regularly used heroin, methamphetamine, and cocaine for several years. In 2003, Tom pleaded no contest to a misdemeanor after being accused of hitting a former girlfriend and dragging her across a floor. This same year, he was accused of physically attacking Heidi Fleiss, the notorious leader of an upscale prostitution ring. Tom was convicted of several misdemeanor charges in connection with this attack. He repeatedly violated the conditions of his probation and was sentenced to 7 months in jail. In 2007, Tom was arrested for possession of methamphetamine outside a hotel in Bakersfield, California. He was on probation at the time. Tom was arrested again in 2009 and in 2011 in connection with alleged attacks on romantic partners. In July 2016, Tom attacked his girlfriend. In February 2017, he pleaded no contest to charges stemming from that attack. He managed to avoid any jail time on this occasion. In January 2019, Tom was arrested in Burbank, California for misdemeanor drug possession. During the early morning hours of February 18, 2023, when Tom was sleeping at his home in Los Angeles, he suffered a stroke and a brain aneurysm. He lost consciousness and would never regain it. Tom Sizemore died on March 3, 2023, at the age of 61. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in the case of Tom Sizemore. Item number 1 is Tom's personality. He appeared to be high in openness to experience, low in conscientiousness, high in extroversion. For example, he was very high in the facet of excitement seeking. He had mid-range agreeableness, and overall, he was high in neuroticism, although he did not have a lot of anxiety. Item number 2, substance use played a major role in Tom's life. When he was not using substances, he was viewed as a relatively dedicated acting professional who took his job seriously. When he was using substances, he was a production studio's worst nightmare. Tom said that if he were a different person, he would have never hired Tom Sizemore for any job. When Tom was not using drugs, he was obsessed with the thought of using them in the future. When he was filming Saving Private Ryan overseas, he was strictly forbidden from using any illegal substances. He fantasized about using the entire time he was working on the movie. He was particularly obsessed with heroin. When he returned to the United States, he quickly overdosed on heroin and almost died. Item number 3 is how Tom Sizemore viewed his addiction. Tom once wrote a letter to a judge saying that he permitted his personal demons to take over his life. He didn't want to make excuses, but he was convinced that if he had not been under the influence of drugs, he would have controlled his illegal behavior. Over time, Tom started to view himself as a victim of the drugs that he was using. He believed that he had no control over substance use. His addiction was based on his genetic makeup. He became angry at all the people who accused him of various offenses. He didn't think they should be angry at him, rather they should be upset at the drugs. He also believed that many people accused him of offenses because he was a substance user. Like they were falsely accusing him, they never gave him the benefit of the doubt. Tom viewed his substance use as something very separate from mental illness. When spending time in prison in 2007, he was disgusted by other inmates who were mentally ill. He viewed himself as merely an addict and viewed the mentally ill inmates as inferior and dangerous. Tom's distorted view of substance use and mental illness is not uncommon for people who chronically use substances. Despite attempting to escape responsibility in many ways, Tom did realize that drug use destroyed his career. He issued a warning to people considering drug use, essentially saying that they should be careful or they might end up being like him. Item number 4. In addition to being addicted to drugs, Tom thought of himself as being addicted to sex. He often combined the two activities. Along with thinking about drugs all the time, he was thinking about sex as well. Specifically, Tom felt as though methamphetamine made him energetic, euphoric, and enhanced the qualities of his genitals. I guess one could say that Tom Sizemore believed that methamphetamine led to more size. In his book, Tom described his methamphetamine-fueled romantic encounters with a genuine fondness, like he was recalling the best days of his life. Item number 5. Tom Sizemore was a talented actor, but his drug use really held him back. Despite this, the number of roles available to him actually increased in the late 1990s, which afforded him a great opportunity to turn his career around. Unfortunately for Tom, he continued to use drugs, he ran into legal problems, and he spent way too much money. At the peak of his career, he was earning about $4 million a movie, but that was not enough to cover all his expenses, including a 2,800 square foot 3-bedroom house in the Benedict Canyon neighborhood of Los Angeles. Tom ended up filing for bankruptcy. Item number 6. There was an incident in 2003 that severely damaged Tom's career. It wasn't made public until 2017, but many people in the movie industry knew about it prior to that. Tom was shooting the movie Born Killers, which should not be confused with the 1994 movie Natural Born Killers, which he was also in. During the filming, Tom needed to have some still photographs taken with an 11-year-old actress. She was sitting on his lap for these photographs. Later, the actress accused Tom of making inappropriate contact. The studio looked at the photographs and said they were inconclusive, but they also considered Tom's history of criminal behavior and drug use. They thought he was certainly capable of committing this offense and removed him from the movie. After realizing that they rushed to judgment, they allowed him to continue, but the damage was already done. Tom's talent agency dropped him. Prosecutors did not file charges, saying that there were witness and evidence problems. Tom was later sued by the alleged victim, but the lawsuit was dismissed. Item number 7. Tom Sizemore had an unusual view of himself as an actor. On one hand, he was confident and even a little arrogant, but on the other hand, he felt grateful to be given any work at all. Tom said that he was captivated by actors like Montgomery Clift, Marlon Brando, and James Dean. He identified with them and saw himself as being at their level. He viewed these actors as special, but also viewed himself as special. He believed his life always felt heightened and dramatic. He considered himself equal to any great actor. At the same time, Tom respected other actors and was a big fan. He was always amazed to be in their presence. In his book, he dropped a lot of names of actors he met throughout the years, like Tom Cruise, Willem Dafoe, Dustin Hoffman, Kevin Kline, Mickey Rourke, Sylvester Stallone, Elizabeth Hurley, Hugh Grant, Robert Downey Jr., Johnny Depp, Christopher Walken, Brad Pitt, Val Kilmer, Robert De Niro, and Tom Hanks. Every time he mentioned an actor's name in his book, it was almost like he was saying, "Can you believe I met this person?" Item number 8. Tom viewed himself as both a success and as a failure. One of his greatest disappointments was not being viewed positively by the public. He knew that his criminal behavior, specifically, tarnished his image beyond repair. He often played gritty, tough guy characters who disrespected the law, but he didn't view himself as one of those characters. He wished he could have been well respected, like Tom Hanks, but he knew that was impossible. I think one story that illustrates both Tom's confidence and his fall from grace is his relationship with Robert De Niro. As I mentioned, the movie Taxi Driver was a major source of inspiration for Tom. He wanted to be like Robert De Niro. Tom said that Robert wanted him to get substance use treatment and even drove him to the airport. Robert told him that he was a wonderful actor and he was not going to let him die. One could argue that Tom went from watching Robert De Niro on the silver screen to befriending him to ultimately disappointing him. Which brings me to item number 9. One theme of Tom Sizemore's life was early death. His drug use may have contributed to his brain aneurysm. Cocaine and methamphetamine both have a strong connection with this particular medical problem. Tom said that when he was 50 years old, he felt terrible, both mentally and physically, from his many years of substance use. He thought to himself he would only be around for 30 or 35 more years, and he wanted to make the most of it. In reality, he was only around for 11 more years. Tom did not know it, but the damage that would end his life was probably already done at that point. People who stop using substances often have difficulty recognizing the damage that the substance use caused. They want to believe abstinence means complete redemption, but sadly, this is rarely the case. Chronic drug users have to face a number of problems like legal, social, financial, career, mental health, and physical. Recovery is always going to lead to a better outcome than continued use, but it is important to face reality. The ability to engage in denial can exist in recovery by the person disregarding the consequences of years of substance use. Tom encountered many harbingers of death throughout his life. For example, after his career went downhill, he encountered many people who said to him, "I thought you were dead," which gives some idea of the low social skills possessed by the people with whom Tom interacted. At some level, I think Tom did understand the gravity of his situation. One time he said, "All I have is today, and for that, I'm incredibly grateful." Now moving to my final thoughts. Tom Sizemore was never able to achieve his primary goal of being respected by the public, but he did become a Hollywood legend. He implied that acting gave him a high and a way to channel his anger, but it would seem that acting was not enough. Tom was always looking for intense thrills and only ever partially realized the dangers of this mentality. He was a complicated individual who gained masterful insight into the mind of villainous characters, but was unable to gain insight into the villain who lived inside of him. Those are my thoughts on the case of Tom Sizemore. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.